It's that time, it's finally the end of April, so it's time for my first full-length April wrap-up video. I normally do these really fast, really short and sharp, yes, no, maybe style, but I'm gonna do yes, no, maybe with a little bit of an extended explainer, and I've got a few interesting books in here that I want to talk about, so let's just get straight into it. First up, we've got The Stranger at the Table. This is the only thriller I read this month, which is not like me at all. I am a big thriller girl, so I was kind of delving into all sorts of genres this month. Thriller was not one of them. However, I liked this book a lot. I gave it 4 stars. It was set in Australia, which made it even more interesting for me. I love being able to imagine and visualize where I'm reading about. This book was very interesting in that I couldn't really see where it was going. I guess some of the plot twists, not all of them. And it was definitely a bit less thriller than mystery, but it was still fun and I do recommend it. Next up, we've got the third book in the Medoran Chronicles series, Dracora. I am flying through these books and I'm loving every second of it. The first book was a bit, it was like 3 stars, I think. This, 4 stars. Second book, also 4 stars. I feel like they are getting better as I read them, and hopefully you can't hear my dog drinking water in the background of this video. I really like where this is going. This was actually a super different book compared to the other 2 in the series because it's sort of placed in a different setting entirely. You're not really following her friends, you're following her. She's meeting new people and she's making new friends, and there was just so much about this book that I loved, and I think this may very well be my favorite of the series so far. Next up, we've got Broken Hearted. This is the 3rd book in the Cursed Fae series. I've read the first 2 as well. I do believe they're interconnected romance, but I do feel like it's best if you can read them in order, just because there is a slight underlying plot that follows along. However, you could totally read these out of order and kind of get the gist. The thing with this book is that I felt like the plot was the best in this book, but the romance was lacking severely. I didn't really believe the romance between the 2 main characters, and I think that stems to the fact that at the very beginning of this book, you're sort of wondering who her mate is going to be. There's 2 potential guys. You find out very early on who is the mate for her, and I was a little bit disappointed because I liked the other one a bit more, so I think they kind of let me down. I rated this 3 stars. I am very excited for the 4th book, however, because I really liked the mate that she didn't get with, if that makes sense. So I'm excited to see his story, and I just feel like he deserves more than what he got. Next, I read The 9-Month Contract. Now, if you saw my TikTok video on this, or I think I posted it on YouTube Shorts as well, I did not love this book. In fact, I rated this 1.5 stars. It is the lowest rated book I've ever read. And that is saying a lot because I'm not a harsh rater by any means. I'm pretty lenient, and I can usually find enough in a book to give it at least 2 stars. 1.5 for me was, I really didn't like this book, but the found family in it was alright. So I kind of enjoyed that aspect, but I really didn't like this book. To go into it a little bit, I don't want to go too much into it. I feel like there were a lot of comments made in here that were really kind of gross. I didn't like some of it, and also while I was reading it, I was just thinking this feels like someone was trying to write to be relevant. The amount of times I saw the word Riz in this book was actually appalling. So I really can't say I love this book. However, I will be giving the second book, The 7-Year Itch, a go. Next, I read The Bees for a book club, and you know what? This was really different for me. I do love a dystopian book, but I just don't read that many of them because they're not that popular, and I'm kind of my TBR is full of books that are popular at the moment, and so I don't really get to read that many dystopian books very often. One of my favorite books of all time is a sci-fi dystopian called The Day of the Triffids, so I was excited to read something a little bit along those lines, and it was really good. I gave this book, I think, 3 stars overall. I did enjoy it. However, I do feel like it went on for a bit long, and there were definitely times where I was a little bit confused. It was good, but I would recommend it to a specific type of person. If you are not into long-ish dystopians or just very odd and out there books, you probably won't like this book. However, if you really look at this book and you really analyze what it's trying to say, it's obviously not talking about bees. You can apply the things that are being talked about to the real world, and it does become interesting in that sense. So that's why I found it interesting, because it was kind of like a take. I also learned a hell of a lot about bees against my will. Next, I read The South Wind. Now, I haven't read The North Wind. I did read The West Wind. I gave it 4.5 stars from memory. This was a 5 stars for me, leaning towards a 6. I loved every second of this book. Normally, these books I find are quite long. They're like 500 pages or something like that, even more than that, I think. And it did feel long, but I didn't hate that. I wasn't trying to get to the end. I was loving that there was a lot more than usual in this book, which is good for me, because normally I'm waiting to get to the end of that 350 page book so I can get to the next. That didn't happen here. I was actually upset when it did end, and I think this is probably my most loved MMC of all time. I loved him dearly. I'm gonna say his name was Notice. I think that's how you pronounce it, but I honestly don't know. It was a Sleeping Beauty retelling, and if you put a Sleeping Beauty retelling in front of me, I'm going to love it. It is one of my favorite fairy tales of all time. I loved this book so much. But seriously, that MMC was something else, and if you have not read this book, you need to, and no, you do not need to read the books in order, so if you want to skip them and go straight to the South Wind, be my guest. However, I do feel like if you read them in order, it's probably beneficial, but you can read them out of order, because I obviously didn't read the first book in order. So I've done it and I'm all good, so you can too. And finally, we've got Masters of Death. I had high hopes for this. I've never read anything by Olivia Blake. I've heard amazing things about her writing, and I think this is probably not the right book to start with, if I'm so for real. It was way too long, so chaotic, didn't know what was happening half the time, and it hurt my brain so much. I don't know how I got to the end of this book, and honestly, when I finished it, I thought, that kind of wasn't worth it. I should have just not. So do with that information what you will. I know some people love this book, and I can see why they might like this book. If you can wrap your head around her writing in this book, you'll probably love it. It wasn't for me. And that's it. That is my April reading wrap up. I loved a lot of these books. I also hated a lot of these books. Some of my lowest rated books are in this month, so I feel like I did decently. I'm excited to see what May comes with for me. I have a lot of interesting books on the way, so we're gonna see how that goes. I will let you know. Tell me what your favorite book that you read in April was, because I'm gonna need a few more recommendations for like well-rated books, because at the moment I'm kind of running out and I'm having not the best time and not the best luck with the books that I'm choosing. So let me know in the comments below, and I will see you next time.